welcome back. Or if you're just joining, my name is Maya, and welcome to my channel, Cranleyplace, where I'm focused on Hermès scarf style, inspiration, and more. Before we get started, let me give a shout out to all the channel members, and special welcome to the knot connoisseurs and elegant insiders. I appreciate your ongoing support. If you haven't seen the membership options, please do check them out. In this video, I'll review a 140 centimeter GM cashmere from Hermès' Spring-Summer 2026 season called Le Palais des Quatre Vents by Rosa Maria Unda Souki. We'll take a look at the artist's background, the design, inspiration, and visual architecture, and then a collector's ranking of the available colorways and why. Let's get started. This artist occupies a fascinating place within the contemporary Hermès roster. Her work often feels deeply personal and atmospheric, less concerned with strict realism and more interested in creating emotional or symbolic spaces. That distinguishes her from many traditional Hermès illustrators. While some artists begin with equestrian precision or decorative symmetry, Unda Souki tends to build worlds. Dreamlike environments, layered symbolism, and spaces that feel simultaneously architectural and poetic. There is often a strong sense of imagination in her work, but it is rarely chaotic. Her compositions tend to feel composed and intentional, almost contemplative, and that sensibility aligns beautifully with modern Hermès. In recent years, the house has increasingly embraced designs that move beyond literal equestrian storytelling into broader themes such as travel, memory, landscape, and emotional atmosphere. Le Palais des Quatre Vents feels very much part of that evolution. Its title translates to the Palace of the Four Winds. Immediately, it suggests something mythic and architectural, not simply a place, but a symbolic one. And in many ways, that is exactly what the scarf becomes. For collectors, this is a sort of design that often appeals to those who gravitate towards artistic storytelling, architectural compositions, and scarves that create mood rather than simply depict subject matter. It is less about ornament alone and more about entering a visual world. According to the backstory on Hermès.com, this design is described as a dream of peace and freedom, inspired by wandering through the narrow streets of Lisbon. And that idea is immediately visible in the composition. Rather than presenting a literal cityscape, she creates an imagined palace crowned with flowers, framed by palms, illuminated by an eternal sun, and wrapped in decorative mosaic-like geometry. This is not documentary architecture. It is architecture as an emotional landscape, and that distinction matters. The Lisbon reference is especially interesting as a city known for its steep streets, layered histories, tiled facades, sunlight, and a constant dialogue between structure and atmosphere. You can feel that influence throughout the scarf. The graphic mosaics are particularly important. They frame the architecture almost like decorative tiles or pattern walls, introducing rhythm and geometry into what might otherwise be a purely romantic composition. And then above the battlements, there is the sun. Unda Souki describes it as eternal. That detail changes how the design reads, because this is not merely a palace standing in a landscape. It becomes a kind of symbolic refuge, a place suspended outside ordinary time. Structurally, the scarf is quite beautifully organized. The palace acts as the central anchor, and from there the eye moves outward and upward through towers, palms, floral details, and repeating decorative motifs. There is a vertical quality to the composition. Unlike more horizontal narrative scarves, this one encourages the gaze to rise. That creates a feeling of aspiration and openness, perfectly aligned with the themes of freedom and contemplation. And more importantly, the design balances dense pattern and negative space. There are moments of ornament, but also moments of visual breathing room. That restraint prevents the composition from feeling overly busy. And the 140 centimeter format is where this design becomes especially successful. In a smaller carré, the architecture might read more literally, but in a 140 centimeter, this design becomes immersive. So when worn, the palace fragments, mosaics drift into abstraction, and flowers and sun motifs appear unexpectedly through folds. And the result is less like wearing a picture and more like wearing atmosphere. That is one of the great strengths of this piece. The design remains identifiable, but it also transforms beautifully in motion. There are currently at least 5 colorways visible online, starting with the marron glacé, the noir, and kaki clair, the strongest collector choice. Sophisticated, contemplative, and architectural in mood. In daylight, this will show rich tonal variation and strong detail, while indoors, it should deepen dramatically and become almost atmospheric. I expect collector appeal for this one to be extremely high. With its timeless and intellectual style, this colorway feels exceptionally aligned with the spirit of the design. The darker ground emphasizes the palace silhouette and the dreamlike quality of the composition. It feels refined without being severe. And in a 140 centimeter format, darker palettes often create especially beautiful drape and movement. This would be my strongest collector recommendation. Next, the rouge, bleu moyen, and blanc, the most unmistakably Hermès. Vibrant, confident, and celebratory in mood. In daylight, this shows bold contrast and excellent clarity, while indoors, the rouge becomes richer and more enveloping. Collector appeal for this one should also be very broad. With its classic Hermès energy, the palette immediately catches the eye. The red and blue combination creates movement and drama while still feeling rooted in house tradition. Next, the orange, naturel, and rouge, the warm heritage choice. Sunlit, welcoming, and richly decorative in mood. In daylight, this has glowing warmth, while indoors, it becomes softer and more tonal. Collector appeal should also be very strong for this one. With its warm classicism, this version feels especially connected to the Lisbon inspiration. The palette evokes terracotta, warm stone, and Mediterranean light. Very wearable and emotionally resonant. Next, the bleu lavande, jaune soufre, and rose, the most imaginative of the available colorways. Dreamlike, artistic, and optimistic in mood. In daylight, this reads as highly expressive and luminous, while indoors, the pastels soften, while sulfur yellow remains energetic. Collector appeal for this one should be more selective. With its fashion-forward romantic character, this version leans fully into the poetic side of the design. Beautiful, though less traditionally versatile. Last but not least, we have the jaune vif, blanc, and multicolor, the most exuberant of the set. Joyful, graphic, and radiant in mood. In daylight, this has extremely high energy, while indoors, it remains vivid and playful. I expect collector appeal for this one to be more niche. With its youthful and expressive character, the palette emphasizes celebration over contemplation. It's very striking, but perhaps the least timeless of the group. Le Palais des Quatre Vents feels less like a traditional narrative scarf and more like an invitation into an imagined world. Through Rosa Maria Unda Souki's vision, architecture becomes memory, refuge, and aspiration, and that emotional quality is what makes the design distinctive. And in the 140 centimeter format especially, the scarf moves beyond illustration into atmosphere. It feels contemplative, dreamlike, and surprisingly immersive. And perhaps that is its greatest strength. It doesn't simply depict beauty. It imagines a place where beauty and freedom still feel possible. So there you have it. More on this design from Hermès' Spring-Summer 2026 collection. Please like and share the video if you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think in the comments. In future episodes, I'll share other scarf reviews, inspiration, and more, so be sure to hit that subscribe button to be notified of new videos. Thanks again for joining me today. Until next time!